I met today's guest at a networking event, and it was a pleasure to speak with him. I walked to my car thinking, this gentleman has a story. He's brave. He's bold. He has a lot of grit. His name is Sean M. Sullivan. He's with us today. And when you hear his story, and he explains to us how autism is indeed his superpower, then you come away better understanding autism, disabilities, and how cold and cruel life can be sometimes, unnecessarily. I'll be back in a moment. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Another episode here at Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation. Man, am I excited to have this conversation with Sean Sullivan. Those of you who listen, you understand that it's not often that we have a gentleman that is going to be that says yes to coming on the show for whatever reasons, I don't know. But Sean Sullivan is a very heartfelt gentleman. We were on a wonderful, wonderful networking cruise, and I had a chance to meet him. And on his card, he's a motivational speaker, and he says, autism is my superpower. So when you speak with Sean Sullivan, you understand that it really, really is. So we're going to deep dive as quickly as we can and take you as deep as we can into the life and the mission of Mr. Sean Sullivan. Sean, welcome to Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic.
Oh,
thank you for asking.
Yes, and
How
I
about
do.
yourself?
Oh, my goodness. I want to get started with who, in a nutshell, today, when you look back, who is Sean Sullivan in your own words?
Absolutely. So I define myself as someone who has a relationship with adversity. It seems like challenges and obstacles really like me and really wants to be my friend, but I personally don't really want to be their friend. However, I do consider the challenges in my life that I've overcome up to this point as stepping stones. And what I mean by that is they give me the opportunity to become a stronger and more amazing person. And the challenges also give me an opportunity to problem solve and come up with solutions instead of complaining.
You know how powerful this conversation is already, Sean? You said that the obstacles, the challenges and obstacles that seem to want to befriend you, you are repelling them calling them stepping stones and opportunities to become a stronger, more amazing person. You can change, you're changing the world just in the first few minutes that we're having our conversation. Will it be okay if if you take us on a little bit deeper into a few of the challenges and obstacles that have come your way?
Definitely. So one example, or I'm going to give two examples.
Okay.
The first example, we were talking a little bit about it before the show, but the second example is I have very bad asthma, and my asthma has came very close to costing me my life a couple of times. One time it put me in the ICU, intensive care unit in the hospital. I was on life support. I was incubated, and I was in a coma for 10 days. When I woke up, I was extremely weak because for 10 days, I wasn't moving at all. I was just asleep, and that made my muscles not strong at all. So when I woke up, I couldn't even lift a fork and knife. So I had to go through physical and occupational therapy to get my strength back, and also to be able to walk again.
What a challenge. Yeah. Wow. How long did it take you to get your strength back, to actually kind of get back to where you were? That months, weeks, years?
2 months, around 2 months.
That seems pretty fast to me, though. Once again, that.
Well, I have a kind of a quick recovery speed. I'm pretty fortunate in that department.
Wow. That's a monumental milestone, definitely, where it could have been completely different in someone else's life. But when I met you, you were strong and upright. And a couple of weeks ago, I mean, I never would have known that you went through that. Sean, will you take us into what happened to you when you were in the boarding school? Because I do want people to understand that when you say that you've had some hard challenges and obstacles, I want them to understand that and what some of this looks like, what you've gone through, so that when the rest of us want to get out the violin and feel sorry for ourselves, I want people to remember Sean Sullivan went through this and Sean Sullivan went through that. So will you tell us about what happened to you when you were at the boarding school?
definitely. So, and it was located in Oregon. And during my year and a half stay there, I was forced to sleep outside on the concrete with no covers and no pillow. Students and teachers would pour cold water on me while I was asleep. I was not allowed to go out in the community, and eventually the authorities caught wind of this,
Mm-hmm.
and they were about to close the school down and make multiple arrests, I think. However, somehow the school found out about this beforehand,
Mm-hmm.
and so they took all of us, the students, including me, from the school
Mm-hmm.
in Oregon. They took us under the guise of a field trip. They said we were going on a field trip to Washington, and we were able to go on a boat. We took some kayaks, and we ultimately went to a island in the middle of the night. I ran away because I didn't want to be with them anymore. So I took one of the kayaks and I went to Seattle. I then proceeded to go to the police, and I told
Did someone help
them
you once you
everything.
got to Seattle, Sean? How did you make that trip on your own?
It was difficult, but I managed to kayak there from the island. I was really lucky because the water was really calm.
Mm-hmm.
There were hardly any waves at all.
Mhm.
And so when I arrived to Seattle, it took me a while to find the police. But I did. And once I told them everything, they took me to a waiting area until my parents were able to arrive from New Jersey.
New Jersey. Oh my goodness.
And then I guess the Washington police authorities contacted the Oregon authorities, and the school finally got shut down.
Wow. Because you were brave enough to run away, get to the authorities, tell your story. Wow. These are challenges and obstacles that most of us will never encounter in our lives. But Sean, do you find that these things that you speak of right now and other things that you come to understand and realize and experience, are they the reason why you are so compassionate with people with disabilities?
Yes.
And okay. Because your podcast is named I Know Disabilities, Mental Health, etc. And I love that. Will you take us? Oh, yes. Will you take us into the fact? I'm looking at the time and I want to move along because I have so many questions. But will you take us into the fact that you are the executive director, the founder of a nonprofit, I Know Autism Foundation? Will you take us into what your foundation is all about?
Definitely. So the mission of my nonprofit is to give motivational speeches to people with different connections to disabilities, mental health challenges, and diseases. I give motivational talks at hospitals, at schools, at rehab centers, to people who experience depression, stuff like that.
Compassionate conversations and motivational speeches, telling stories, things that happen in your life. That's probably the format, pretty much, so that they can relate to you. Is that sounds like that's how you approach it?
That's part of it, but I also am self-taught. I taught myself different subjects that relate to diseases, mental health challenges, and disabilities. I was never one for college is not meant for me. So I just decided to learn on my own time, and I'm pretty good at that.
Oh, I see that you are, because I took a listen to a couple of your podcasts, and yeah, self-taught, You know your stuff. The passion and compassion is there. And once again, that's why you can own Autism is My Superpower. As the executive director and founder of I Know Autism Foundation, what can people do contribute to the growth of your foundation? Is there something that Joe Blow down the street, any of us can do to help you with your mission?
100%. There's three things that I would ask and appreciate the listeners would do. The first thing is to spread the word about my nonprofit to people that you believe might be interested in having me speak. If any of the listeners need motivation or need guidance or a friend, you can count on me. The second thing that would help me out a lot is if anyone would be able to donate to my nonprofit. Any amount would be very much appreciated, and all donations are tax deductible. And for those of you who don't know what that means, it basically means that you'll get a certain percentage back on your tax returns, and you can do whatever you want with that, with those returns. The third thing that I would request is that, and this is more so helpful advice than it is anything else, but never give up, never give in, and never surrender to difficult situations. Instead, make the difficult situations that you're facing give up, give in, and surrender to you.
You turn that around. Instead of you surrendering, giving up, and giving in to the situation, you turn that around and make it surrender to you. Sean Sullivan, you've proven that. You have proven that it can be done, that it is being done. And I have one final question for you, sir. What do you have going on for the future, the rest of the year? And then what can we expect? What are you working on for 2023? And, what's on the horizon for you here at the foundation and just for Sean Sullivan, the man?
Um, I'm about to be on a radio show in North Carolina on September 25th.
Okay.
That's pretty exciting, I think.
Yeah.
I'm also I'm working and trying to get to do a TED Talk.
Oh my.
Are you familiar with what that is?
Oh, yes, that's on my bucket list. I plan to do one next year. Yes. Are you preparing or are you just thinking about it? Because I'm just thinking about it. You sounds like you're actually preparing to do one. Is that true?
That's correct.
Oh.
Yes.
I'm taking note of that. That is major. That is keep us informed. Let us know when and where you're going to do that, because I definitely want to push that TEDx conversation out. That talk is going to be amazing. Sean Sullivan, you have given us so much insight into how to relate to a person with myriad different disabilities, how to really turn challenges and obstacles into stepping stones. I'll never forget this conversation. So as I'm looking at the clock, is there one final piece of information that you want to leave the listeners with today?
Absolutely. So my final piece of advice is use your time as wisely and effectively as you can. Most of the time, I wake up at about 6 o'clock a.m. and I get to work. I focus on my goals only, and I I try my best to be as efficient as I can.
Mm-hmm. 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 You have given so much insight and inspiration and, yes, motivation to the world. I thank you so very much for your time. It was a pleasure to meet you, and even greater honor to have this conversation with you. Good luck on your TEDx conversation, your TEDx talk. I know it's going to be fabulous, and the radio show there in North Carolina. And from one colleague to another, I am so glad that you are a podcaster also. So, we are going to have this conversation again. Would that be all right with you, Sean?
Absolutely. 100%.
Okay. All right. Well, listeners, it's always so hard for me to wind up these fabulous conversations. It's always my intention to bring on people who are moving the needle for not only for themselves, but for ourselves. And gents, now you understand this man stepped up to the plate. So her business, her voice, her conversation, we want to hear from the men also, the men who are doing some great things. And Sean Sullivan is definitely, he laid out the reason why we all can move forward, why we all can turn our challenges and obstacles into stepping stones. So I'll be back next week with a brand new episode right here. Her business, her voice, her conversation. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. This was a powerful episode indeed. Thank you so much, Sean Sullivan. I trust that he opened up parts of your heart and your mind, and you'll never look at a person with disabilities the same way. Again, thank you, Sean. This episode was brought to you by PodcastAcademyOnline.com. Imagining, building, and launching your podcast is not hard with the right balance of information and accountability. PodcastAcademyOnline.com will help you build, monetize, and show up on all of the major podcast directories like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. The Academy offers 3 different classes: Build Your Podcast in 30 Minutes, Classes on Demand, or Deep Dive with the 8-week virtual instructor-led class. Visit podcastacademyonline.com and let's develop your podcast. That's it. Another podcast down, another episode down. I'll be back next week. Brand new episode here at Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation. In the meantime, pay a visit to my website, gobeyondtheinterview.com. That's where you can take a listen to all of the episodes, binge listen to all of the podcast episodes, get caught up. My book is over there, and also podcastacademyonline.com. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye now.